Percy Harrison Fawcett was born in Devon in 1867 and disappeared into the Amazon jungle, never to be seen again, in 1925. His son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh Rimmel vanished with him. The trio were on an ill-fated quest to find a lost city built by a supposedly highly civilized Amazonian tribe and possibly linked to Atlantis. Now, despite that biographical preamble sounding utterly crazy, all of it is true. It's with these salient facts in mind that one should begin when considering the accounts of indigenous Amerindian peoples encountered by Fawcett, a man who has been referred to as a hero and incompetent and dangerous in various quarters since his probable demise in the jungle. Before that final, fateful expedition, Fawcett's involvement with the Americas began in 1906, when, at the age of 39, he travelled to Brazil to map a jungle area at the border of Brazil and Bolivia at the behest of the Royal Geographical Society. The organisation had been commissioned by the fractious governments of Bolivia and Brazil to independently map out the border between the two countries. This task was seen by many as his best and most scientifically sound work. However, it did not take long for Fawcett's overactive imagination and habit for tall tales to take hold. He claimed that, while on the expedition, he had had a number of strange encounters. These included a boast that he had seen and shot a 62-foot, 90-metre anaconda, claimed to have discovered a small cat-like dog about the size of a foxhound, and encountered a giant spider that had poisoned a number of locals. He made 7 expeditions between 1906 and 1924 and had built up reasonably amicable relations with the local tribes by bringing them gifts. He also made further outlandish claims, including about the existence of more curious canines. This time, in 1913, the beasts were described as having double noses. This gave rise to the myth of the double-nosed Andean tiger hounds. While these stories can be seen as largely harmless fabrications by an eccentric, self-appointed explorer, they would expose early on the credulity and obsession that would lead to Fawcett's demise, along with the unnecessary deaths of others because of them. A year later, the object of this obsession would reveal itself to Fawcett in his fevered imagination, when he claimed to have found documentary evidence of a lost city in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil that he had dubbed Zed. Fawcett's folly was halted temporarily in 1914 as the First World War broke out and he returned to Europe to enter the fray. He fought with distinction in Flanders, commanding an artillery brigade, and, despite being close to 50, was mentioned in dispatches 3 times and promoted from major to lieutenant colonel on March 1, 1918. But then bravery was not something Fawcett lacked, and he was awarded the Distinguished Service Order, DSO, in recognition of his wartime efforts. His heroic war record, along with his successful mapping expedition, can be held up as examples of Fawcett's undoubted bravery and dedication to duty. But despite this, he could not stop himself from making up nonsense and chasing fallacious dreams in the jungle. Fawcett also believed in occultism and was enthralled to the teachings of a crank named Helena Blavatsky. Blavatsky was a Russian occult practitioner, cod philosopher and all-round fraud who co-founded the Theosophical Society in 1875. She gained an international following, effectively as the leader of a cult which postulated an esoteric religion based on the belief that, as the legendary city of Atlantis sunk beneath the waves, its inhabitants fled to different corners of the globe and founded advanced civilizations. These included settlements in Tibet, the Americas, Europe and India. The cult was popular with certain well-heeled and influential types such as Fawcett, and blended Neoplatonism, Hermeticism, scientific discovery and Buddhist ideas in a heady cocktail that seemed to neatly explain much about the origins of civilization. Now, I retain an open mind about the idea of Atlantis, whether it refers to some cataclysm or whether it serves as an allegorical device to warn against hubris, but it was Fawcett's adherence to Blavatsky's fraudulent doctrine that led him on the path to destruction in his quest to find Zed. After the Great War, Fawcett returned to Brazil, ostensibly to study local wildlife and carry out archaeological research. In 1920, his obsession with Zed got the better of him again, and he made a solo attempt to find the mythical city. The abortive expedition ended in inauspicious circumstances, with Fawcett going down with fever and shooting his pack animal. But his self-inflicted suffering in pursuit of the dream of his lost city did not end there. Fawcett's final mission most likely claimed his own life, the life of his son and his son's friend. I say most likely because it has never been proven what happened to the trio, and their bodies were never found, though many theories have been proffered. Indigenous Kalapalo tribesmen were said to have claimed their ancestors dispatched the visitors after they overstayed their welcome and began to take liberties with their hospitality. The final expedition started in 1925 after gaining funding from a London-based consortium of financiers who called themselves the Glove. With the expressed intention of travelling light and avoiding alerting hostile native tribes, Fawcett chose only his son, Jack, his friend Raleigh Rimmel, and 2 Brazilian labourers as travelling companions. He left instructions that no rescue attempt should be made in the event of the trio failing to return. Fawcett had plenty of experience in traversing jungle environments in South America, but his decision to travel with so few companions, 2 of which were young and inexperienced, has been condemned as foolhardy by later explorers. The group took with them 2 horses, 8 mules and a pair of dogs. Fawcett's final letter to his wife, which was thought to have been written at Fawcett's Dead Horse Camp, was delivered by a native runner and dated May the 29th, 1925. It revealed the dismissal of the Brazilians and his intention to go into unexplored territory with his son and Rimmel. The trio were thought to be crossing the upper Chingu River, an Amazon tributary. Unsurprisingly, Fawcett's disappearance caused a stir in the media, and aside from sensible suggestions such as the group meeting their end at the hands of local hostile Amerindians, potentially the Kalapalos, fevered imaginations continue to conjure up theories to this day about what happened to the Fawcett expedition. One such theory is that he and his companions made it to Zed and set up home there. Fawcett's theosophical beliefs were said to have led him to believe his son was a deity or blessed, and that his presence would ensure safe passage through the jungle. A more level-headed appraisal came from another explorer, John Hemming. Writing for the British magazine The Spectator around the time of the launch of a big-budget 2016 motion picture called The Lost City of Zed, starring Charlie Hunnam, Sienna Miller, Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson, Mr. Hemming wrote, "The old surveyor made 2 pronouncements. One was the trio should travel light, with nothing more than small packs. Everyone in Amazonia knew that you could not cut trails and keep your team fed with fewer than 8 men. I can confirm this, having done months of such cutting and carrying." But Fawcett sent their pack animals and porters back and continued only with his 2 novices. His other dictum was that Indians would look after them. This was equally dangerous. The Chingu tribes pride themselves on generosity, but they expect visitors to reciprocate. All expeditions in the past 4 decades had brought plenty of presents, such as machetes, knives and beads. Fawcett had none. He committed other blunders that antagonized their hosts, so it was only a matter of days before they were all dead. Hemming cited a story of how a Kalapalo chief called Komatsi explained, 20 years after the trio's disappearance, that the tribe had offed the interlopers after they insulted them by harassing one of the tribal women. But more fantastical claims perhaps inevitably gained more currency, especially as the lack of bodies allowed only the mystery to persist, and persist it did and does, both in history and fiction. Sherlock Holmes creator Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Lost World was based on journals made by Fawcett, and art imitated the life that Fawcett had largely fabricated in his far-fetched field notes. So, what do you think happened to Fawcett and his companions? Do you believe there was a lost city of Zed? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.